Hello, I'm Robert, and again, for people who are scared, again, just because of these false prophets, or the false prophets make Jesus seem scary, whereas the Christians don't normally see Jesus being scary at all. He's the Saviour, he's there to help you. And it's just so sad. But anyway, this is a rather beautiful event, and it's nothing to do with Jesus. It's just, there's a very elliptical connection, very, very possible connection with his birth. Nothing to do with Jesus' return. I'll come to that in a minute. But Saturn especially is a very beautiful planet if you ever get to see it in a small telescope with its ring. A marvellous thing. It's just a planet, and it's got this ring around it. And how can a planet have a ring? It really puzzled the early astronomers. And then there's Jupiter with its 4 moons, and it was Galileo who discovered the moons of Jupiter. Actually, it is possible for some children with very keen eyesight to see the moons of Jupiter with naked eye. At least so it's been reported, and you only just one of them, most likely. And then you can actually, if you can manage to hide Jupiter behind something in the front, then you might just possibly be able to see its moons, or one of its moons, with naked eye. Just by hiding the brightness of Jupiter, they actually would be quite noticeable stars in a very dark sky. And it's just because of the brightness of Jupiter that you don't see them. They're very easy to see with small binoculars. And even if you just got binoculars, you can go out and look at Jupiter every night. You'll see the moons change their position because they go around Jupiter quite quickly. And every night you see them in slightly different position. So both of those, you can't see the rings of Saturn with binoculars. You need a small telescope. It's just too small. But if you can look at those individually in different parts of the sky, whenever they are not hidden behind the sun, at some point in the night, then you'll find them. But this is a very unique situation to be able to see both of them close together. To naked eye, it'll just seem like one object. And in binoculars, you should be able to see separate them. And this is what you see with a small telescope, where you see quite a lot of detail. So, if you want to see it, then what I recommend you do is to go and what I recommend you do if you want to see it, is to go out and look for the planets in the nights before. You'll only see it at about 45 minutes after sunset, because it's very close to the sun in the sky. So soon after the sun sets, then Jupiter and Saturn will also set. So you've only got the 45 minutes after sunset, and that's about the optimal time when the sky's got dark enough and you'll be able to see them. And you want a nice low horizon if you're in the northern hemisphere, and high latitude like I am, then it would be in the southwest, and that you see it. So I have no chance here unless I go up the hills to see it, because I happen to have a hill in that direction. I don't think it'll be high enough to see from where I live. If it's hidden behind a house or a hill, then it'd be quite difficult to see. So it's good to follow them beforehand, and see them as they're actually coming down in the sky, until as it approaches, because they're both coming down, moving towards the sun, and then gradually they come closer together and also close to the sun. But you can when they're the closest, it's just before the sun is set. It's just after the setting sun, so you can still see it with binoculars or a small telescope. And so I talked about that's Jupiter and Saturn, a rough idea of what you see about it with a small telescope. It wouldn't look quite as crisp as this, unless you're very lucky. So now, and that's the Hubble Space Telescope, and again, you don't see it quite like that. But it's very beautiful, seeing the real thing. So anyway, now this whole thing about people saying that this is the Bethlehem star, it's really rather far-fetched actually that it is. So anyway, it was the Jupiter and Saturn were quite close together in the sky in 7th BC, but not that close. You wouldn't have been able to see them in the same field of a field of a small telescope like that. They were so far apart that you could fit 2 full moons between the 2 planets. And that's when they were the closest, on December 4, 7 BC. So it's not really the same sort of thing at all. And then if you go and look at the where I've got the list of the events, is it there? Where is that? There we are. If you bring up that page and then you scroll down a bit, it looks quite techy, but if you keep scrolling down, then you find this long list here, and that shows the date and the separation. That's sort of things you really need to look at. So 2.18 minutes, so 65. It doesn't go all the way back to 7 BC, but it was 7 BC, it was like 120 odd minutes. In fact, that would be one of the widest they've been. It's really very far apart. Yeah, 74. No, sorry. It would be 60 minutes. It was about 60 odd minutes. Sorry, not 120. It was about 60 odd minutes, way back 7 BC. Thought there's something a bit. So it's usually about 2 full moons. 60 minutes is 2 full moons. So it's usually something like that size, and then sometimes it just, if it's 30 minutes, that would be 1 full moon apart, and then very occasionally you get it very, very close, and that is the 15th or something of the full moon apart, and that was 1226. And then so there's some other close-up ones, and then you come to us where we are now, year 2020, we're 6.1 degrees apart, arc minutes apart. So we're not the closest it's been. That's another 6.8, 5.2 in 1623, 6.8 in 1563, but some of those, it was behind the sun, and this was where, close to the sun, this was when it was the very closest, 1226, for quite a long time. But even that is not the closest it's been. It will be. It's been in 6856 BC, then Saturn actually passed behind Jupiter. Same in the future, next time will be 7541. It actually happens twice in that same year. So none of us are going to be around, but our great descendants, sort of many generations in the future, will be able to see this from Earth in a telescope, in a small telescope, quite a sight. And and just to explain, when we see Saturn and Jupiter lit up like that, and because they're fully lit on our side, that means we're seeing them on the far side of the sun. They're just about as far away from us as they can be. And they never pass between the sun and us. So there's this one of these false claims being made that we're going to have 3 days of darkness. That makes absolutely no sense at all. The moon can get between the sun and the earth. Because the moon is much smaller than the sun is absolutely huge, and the moon is tiny compared with the sun, even smaller than the earth. So that means that you can only block out the sun from a tiny little patch on the earth's surface, just tens of kilometers wide at best. And I'm not quite sure what's the widest it can be, but it's not very big, the moon's shadow. And because the sun is so much bigger, and so you've got like the cone-shaped lights that go past the moon, and just a tiny patch on. And sometimes it depends on how close the moon is to Earth, or if it's further away. If the moon is further away from Earth, you actually get an annular eclipse, when you have the moon between the sun and the earth, and you just don't get a shadow on earth at all in that point case, because the sun is so much bigger than the moon and light gets past it, and so you don't get any shadow. But when you do have a shadow, it only lasts a few minutes. So the idea of 3 days of shadow makes no sense. The only object that can cast a shadow on earth is the moon. Nothing else is anywhere near enough to do that, and the moon can only cast a shadow for a few minutes. So this is never going to happen in any circumstances, that you'll get 3 days of shadow. It's just a Bible passage. Nobody knows quite what it means. It doesn't have any astronomical meaning for sure. There's no astronomical event that could do that. So, and now if we go to the star, then if you go and look at Saturn and Jupiter, then they weren't particularly close together in the sky, and I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that that is the Star of Bethlehem. I think I'll refresh this page. For some reason it's not showing the bit I just added to it. So, because if you read the passage, it doesn't even remotely, here we go. The Bible just says, where's the one, this is what the wise men said to Herod, where's the one who has been born King of the Jews, for we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. And then a little bit later, and after they gave him leave, and behold, the star they had seen in the east went on before them till it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great gladness. So, they're talking about a single star, they're not talking about the conjunction of two stars. And they're talking about it somehow hovering above the place where the child was, so they could know where to go. One particular house, or numerous houses in Bethlehem. So, this is very, very hard to make any sense of that in terms of in terms of planets. And planets just don't hover like that. Like you'll see if you watch this, it gradually sets with the sun. It doesn't hover over anything. Gradually, it'll set with the sun. It'll set in the west, rise in the east, set in the west, like the sun. But if it's in the sky at the same time as the sun, you don't see it because it's so bright. The sun is so bright. Actually, you could see it in the daytime, but that's an example that shows what it's like in daytime. That's a planet, and that's the moon by comparison. Tiny, tiny little smudge. And that's you've got very keen eyesight. You've got keen eyesight, and you have very clear sky, no clouds, and not sort of heat wavy stuff making it hard to see. Then you should be able to see it like that. Jupiter and Saturn in daytime, but you have to know exactly where to look. In fact, that might be a fun thing to do. If you get a really clear night, clear day, very clear sunlight, very clear skies, and then I suggest you get something like Sky Safari Pro, which is a very good app, Sky Safari. And so if you get that, and then and you can point it at the sky, and you just look at the video, the streaming video of it. The video, just looking, like you're about to take it's got an option. You just click this option, and it'll show you the video of what your camera is showing you. And then you'll see the stars superimposed on that. That's the best option to use. Then you can just see where in the sky the stars are. Just hold it up and move it around until you see. And so you could try using that. I've never tried, but don't get many clear days here this time of year. But that'd be a fun thing to do. To try and find it in daytime and see if you can see Jupiter and Saturn in daytime. It's a very, very faint star, especially if you've got clear. And it's actually quite bright, but the same brightness as the sky. So anyway, yes. Then I just want to talk about, this is 16th, so that's 2 days from now, and December 17th. You can use the new moon, the waxing new moon, to see where the planets, to find the planets. You'll be quite close to it on the 16th and 17th. and they'll be getting closer together, but they won't be that close. So actually 2 days from now on the 16th, and then on the 17th, you could use the new moon and look for it about 45 minutes after, and that'll help you to find out where the planets are. And then you can begin to assess, whether you can see it from where you live, and whether you've got to kind of find a clear sight in that direction. So, right, now I just want to say, so please, I call him now, my nickname for him, Paul Chicken Little Bullshitter Beckley. That's his name. Anyway, this he's the one who's carrying lots of people with his false prophecy, and then YouTube is a little bit like if anyone could come, if you come up with a false prophecy, pop it up onto a YouTube channel, and if it gets a little bit viral, then you have 20, maybe even 100 different channels of false prophets who are constantly on YouTube saying the world's going to end. You have a few of them who are constantly there, and you have other sort of more sporadic ones. And so if you upload a viral false prophecy, then within a few weeks, then or even a few days, then all the other false prophets, you'll become one of the false prophets on YouTube if you do that. And all the other false prophets you'll find will quickly take up your false prophecy and add embellishments to it. And so they'll say, this other thing is going to happen, and this other thing is going to happen, and this other thing is going to happen, and the moon is going to turn into a pumpkin or whatever. You can say all sorts of things, and you soon find that what started off as quite a simple thing has become very, very complicated, with all sorts of earthquakes and hurricanes and, the volcanic eruptions and or just anything, whatever comes to their head, comes to their mind, gets added to it. Anyway, so Paul Beckley started off this false prophecy, which now been added. Now they've had 3 days of darkness and all sorts of silly things, and but he obviously doesn't believe his own false prophecy, because here he's selling tickets for a conference on the 24th of April for $50 each. So I did a separate video, but I'm just reminding you about this. And I say his catchphrase, "Are you serious?" To turn that around. You've been telling all these people that the world's going to end, and then you're selling tickets for $50 each to a conference that's 4 months after the end of the world. Are you serious? And he's saying, buy gold. That's his big thing. Don't buy gold. Don't, whatever you do, don't buy, especially don't buy it from the website that he suggests. But it's not a good idea to buy gold. Anyway, and he's constantly saying the world's going to end. This is from 2000. This is a prophecy. That screenshot is from 2015, when he said the world was going to end in 2015 on July. And he said that July the 31st, the world was going to end in 2015. And he did it many times in 2015, many times in 2016, many times in 2017. He seems to do it more and more often, even, and many times in each year. And so far in 2020, he's also set many different dates for the world to end. And from time to time, one of them goes a bit more viral, and then he gets a news story in the Daily Express, most of those years, I think every year the Daily Express has won at least a few Paul Beckley's news stories too, claiming the world is going to end. So, just another one of those. Anything else that I need to say? I think I've said everything I told you. Let's just quickly go through. Yeah, so, and then he's also, that's in Paul Chicken Little Beckley, with like Chicken Little and the story of the hen, of the chicken that had a acorn on its head and it thought the sky was falling. Yes, this whole Age of Aquarius thing, but I already talked about that before in my previous video. It's not, it doesn't mean that it's not even any particular date. Nobody really knows when it starts, and it's just a calendar thing. It's nothing physical. Just to do with how human beings carve out constellations in the sky. Yeah, I think I've already talked about that in my previous video, which I'll link to there. I'll link to in the video description. This is a very rough idea of what it would look like to a naked eye. will just look like a single star in the sky. So a very bright star. So if you want to, do get hold of at least binoculars in order to be able to see that there's two stars instead of just one, and maybe see the moons of Jupiter as well, all in the same field of view. And if you can get hold of it, look through a small telescope, that's the best way to look at it. Anyway, so I hope that some of you are now a bit less scared again. It's totally rather just a lovely thing. It's just so sad that people are getting scared by something that's really rather lovely, if you get to see it. And although we most of us won't be able to get to see it like that, I'm sure there'll be lots of actual real photographs when the time comes. This is in Sky Safari app, the one I told you about. So anyway, I'll upload that and hopefully help a few of you.